Okay.
and then you'll be able to download the MP4 directly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So just wait a second. It should be recording now. Yeah.
Hi everyone, this is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and I'm excited to have Dr. Soumyadip Rakshit, who's a co-founder and CEO of MysteryVibe, an award-winning sexual health company that is currently CEO of MysteryVibe focuses on publishing the boundaries on R&D, customer experience, and supporting the long-term goal of making sexual health an integral part of our overall health. Welcome to the show, Som.
Thank you very much for having me, Rohit.
Awesome. So, Osam, you have an interesting journey, just like me. You are from India, and then you moved to UK. How did you get your start into startups, and what got you interested to build Mr. Vibe?
Yes, very true. It's been a long journey, starting from my school where I started tinkering with building computers back in the 90s, to then studying electronics undergrad in India, then doing my PhD in UK, and always being passionate about building stuff, especially electronics. And then in UK, I focused on biometrics, and working in that case with ophthalmologists, eye doctors, and creating devices for eyes. And that actually became a startup, which is very much accidental. So that was my first brush with startups and entrepreneurship. And that was a security startup, worked on iris recognition, worked in defense, and got acquired eventually. And from there, I always wanted to build something again. I ended up in corporate in between, working in Deloitte, mostly in counterterrorism. And I wanted to get back to what I love and always loved since I was a teenager, is building electronics. And I also love the medical side of it from my eye research. So I thought I want to find out another medical device I can build, which would help people. And that's how I ended up with MysteryVibe. Uh, and the goal for me creating this company was how can I help people overcome big life events like childbirth, menopause, aging, erectile dysfunction, and help them reconnect with their partners, have intimacy, and bring that mystery back in the bedroom. And in this case, with the help of devices instead of medicines with side effects. So, using devices to improve blood flow, improve arousal, improve erections, improve dryness, reduce pain. So that's where that's how we started MysteryVibe.
Interesting. And you mentioned, you're done your PhD in biomedical from University of Bath. That's a that's a pretty renowned university. How was your experience, starting a PhD? And do you think, in these times, would you recommend people to do, go for higher education, especially PhD and masters, or do you think people can, start working on the ideas and just build from there?
I do feel it is it, both are the same. If you're really passionate about a topic, you might end up starting a company in that topic. And if you're really passionate about a topic, you might end up doing a PhD on the topic. And I feel my company is very similar in my experience to my PhD, is you constantly learn and you have a lot of time to invest to get deeper and deeper and deeper into the topic and become the world expert at something specific. By the end of whether it's a 4-year PhD or a 10-year company or however long you spend on that thing, it's the pursuit of depth. If that's what you care about, then a PhD, for me, it was absolutely the best years of my life. I loved that I could, sit at my office, research for, however long I wanted to, without any interruptions, without a deadline, spend years on studying something without any exams, like really immerse yourself into learning something and then applying it to building products, which eventually has real world applications. So I am the kind of person who loves having time to go deep in in things and understand them, which is why both having a PhD and having a medical device company makes me very happy. Um, because if I try to do a little bit of a lot of things, I would feel I am not learning anything well enough.
Interesting. I really like that you mentioned about pursuit of learning something is more important than just giving exams or just scoring high marks. I think that's so important in these times. Learning is so crucial. You can learn anything if you go really deep, which you talked about. Um, the sexual health and the wellness sector is so fragmented. Why do you think it's so fragmented and there's no one clear market leader when it comes to sexual health companies?
So the main reason sexual health and wellness is fragmented is a lot of it comes from uh, commodity companies, and by that I mean, especially in the devices segment, they tend to be low cost and foreign made products, which are known as their product line. So when it comes to sex toys, they'll be known as a bullet or a rabbit or a ring, but they won't be known as the brand. So that is what flooded the market over the last, say, 20, 30 years. And that's what majority of people see is generic products. Yeah. And that's why it seems very fragmented. However, if you look at the premium end, where you have very high quality products, there are less than maybe 10 brands who really do that well globally. Um, and outside the devices segment, which is the wider sexual health segment, you'll have very big brands like Durex and Trojan and Skin and other, like KY. So there are big brands who are multi-billion-dollar brands, but they don't do much in the devices segment. They do more on the condoms and lubricant segment. So it is coming up. There has been more investment in the segment. There has been more uh, brands at the premium end of the segment. There has been more consolidation. So I think it's a matter of time before we get more household brand names like Durex and Trojan, which is where there would be the leading players. But at the moment, majority of the products sit in the generic category.
Interesting. And where do you see are the most opportunities in this sector? Uh,
I feel, well, but I'm biased. The biggest opportunities in health, in medical, in genuinely solving problems, genuinely researching again the depth, going deep, working on real world issues, whether it's pain, whether it's arousal, erection, ejaculation, um, because in order to get to pleasure, which is obviously the ultimate goal of sexual wellness, you need to get over the pain and the arousal and the dryness. You have to get over the barriers first before you even get to having a nice intimacy and pleasure. So we focus on that, is how do we improve your quality of life? How do we improve your um, dryness or erection or reduce your pain? Because if we can do that effectively in a clinically proven way and in a very safe way, then we can help you get to that stage where you can enjoy yourself. And that's where the majority of the market sits now, is having pleasure. But to get to that, you need to overcome the barriers.
Interesting. And it looks like you really went deep into this market and you created a company. But why was sexual health so important to you? And why did you decide to go into this particular market for sure?
So when I was in my corporate job, so after I finished my postdoc, and I exited the last company, the main topic that came up amongst my colleagues, my friends, was how do you keep a long-term relationship exciting, especially after you've had kids or work has a lot of stress, or surgery, recovery from something major like cancer, or just normal aging. Menopause is inevitable after 50, and sometimes sooner. Erection issues are often start at 40. So these are all very much normal part of life. Um, Yet, and this is obviously 10 years ago, long before we started, when we were talking about this, no one talked about it, at least not openly. And there didn't seem any solutions or even places where you could go and look for solutions. So what seemed like an extremely normal and common issue um, seemed very hidden and overlooked. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to get back to building devices again, why not do something in a very, like, if I can do it well, then we can significantly impact people's quality of life. Like, just to give you an example, um, more than 50% of men suffer from erection issues at some point, and
Right.
more than 75% of women suffer from pain issues at some point. So it's very big numbers, very big areas where if we can even help a little bit, it helps a lot of people.
Correct. And when you talk about users, are the users mostly men, or do you think mostly women? Where does
Um,
this?
no, so I would say most of our users are couples, um, and it tends to be equally men and women. The reason is what we're trying to solve is improving intimacy, particularly between couples, um, because often where we come in is, you know, you have had something major and you want to recover from that, and that could be pregnancy, menopause, surgery, etc., prostate cancer, um, and it tends to be couples who use our devices or benefit from our devices the most in order to have intercourse again, which is not that much of a thing if you're single in terms of having intercourse with someone regularly till you have a relationship. So it tends to be couples who are our main customers.
Got it. And when talking about your products, do you get the products from China and get the R&D done here and ship it across the world? How does the manufacturing of products and the research really
Yeah.
happen out there?
So we do everything in Surrey. So we have a huge R&D center in Guildford, and so we do everything in-house from the research. So our chief medical officer is the head of King's College Urology. Um, so we do all our medical research in-house. We collaborate with doctors from US and UK. We run our clinical studies in Europe. We do all our concepting, prototyping, electronics, silicon, everything in our labs in Surrey. So we have all the capabilities in-house, and that's really our core strength is our technology. And then we would build, say, the first 500 units in-house. And once we are 100% certain it's ready to go out, then we use our partner medical factory in Hong Kong to build high volume. But till then, so from zero to, say, the first 500 units, we do everything in-house.
Oh, interesting. And how many different products do you have, or is it just one
So we have
product? Which
we have three products at the moment which are in the market. One focuses on pain and arousal. The other one focuses on arousal particularly, and the other one focuses on erection. And we have three more products coming out. One focuses on menopause and arousal. One focuses on prostate, particularly prostatitis. Another focuses on erection, but in a compact form. So they're all different FDA Class 2 medical devices, and they all have specific applications.
Got it. And before the call, you mentioned that you're based in London, but a lot of your sales team are based in the US. How did you manage to run a company remotely? Even before remote was in fashion. How do you go about building a company which is spread across the world and manage different people at different time zones?
Yeah, so I would say the pre-COVID, I should travel a lot.
Okay.
And that is the honest answer. And so how we build it. So obviously, I'm in London, so part of our team is in London. Surrey is our R&D center. Our R&D team is there, so I go to to Surrey at least twice a week. And then prior to COVID, I used to go to US maybe twice a month, or at least
Oh,
once a month. So, and also it's not just one place. Our marketing is in New York. Our sales is in California. We have a team in Florida. So it's not just one place. So that's why I used to go quite a lot. But since COVID, I think it's been very beneficial to learn to adapt and do a lot more via video calls. Because I'm an engineer, I'm very hands-on. That's why I've always been in person present for everything prior to COVID. And I always love that. I want to sit in my lab. I want to go and meet my team in California. And for me, because my background is consulting, so before starting this business, I was in Deloitte, and I used to travel every week. So I'm used to it. It doesn't bother me at all that I get on a plane so like a typical week would be I'll get on a plane on Sunday evening, which goes straight to LA. I'd be in LA Monday morning. I'd work there till say Thursday, and then leave on Friday. Or maybe I'll work till Friday evening and then leave Friday evening and then come back here Saturday morning. And then I would just have a normal day on Saturday here, as if I was just working the day before in London. So, and I got used to that kind of traveling during my consulting years. So I kind of continued that in Mystery Vibe all the way till early 2020. And then, yeah, and then COVID made me rethink that. And I'm really glad about that. That obviously very unhappy about COVID, but very glad that COVID made me realize that you could do um, quite a lot over video calls.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a lot of consultants like to travel, but especially for the salespeople, or when they want to sell products, do you also look at doing B2B sales, or is it mostly B2C that you focus on?
It's mostly B2C for us now, just because there's limited stock. We always have more demand than we can meet, because we're a small company and there's only that much we manufacture at a time. But as we scale, we will do more B2B.
Okay, okay, interesting. And I also realized that you have great designs for your products, and you have beaten Apple Watch at 2018 Design Week Awards. How do you make sure that you always are able to create the best of designs and create those sort of products? Is it mostly uh, you know when it comes to design, is it a final say from the founder, or do you let your team members make decisions and look at reiterating it all the time? And
It's
yeah.
it's more I would say when it comes to the product design, it's very much feedback driven. So we have we have our own ideas obviously, and then it's very much a collaborative process, and everybody puts in their ideas, and we try different things. But where we really benefit is getting it into the hands of people much before we would ever finalize a product, and then just getting feedback and seeing what they like, what they don't like. And often we as engineers do things that we think is very good but the user doesn't. To give you an example of Crescendo, our first product, we made it with induction charging, which is wireless, and I like that because it's wireless and it doesn't have any holes. But from a user perspective, it was quite difficult. They didn't know how to place it correctly, so it was charging. They didn't know how induction worked, and it never really took off widely, the whole induction charging thing. And they requested we use USB. We got so much feedback saying, can you make the charging USB, because that's what they know and they love it and it's easy. So as a you know team of mechanical and electronics engineers, we were taken aback that we built something which was way more complicated than having a USB port. USB was very easy. Um, and we thought it's going to make the user experience so much better because it's beautiful and seamless and no holes. And yet the users don't really want it. And then we always let the users win. That's the ultimate truth. If the users say that's better, then that is better. So in our next version of Crescendo, which is Crescendo 2, we changed it and now it's USB. Um, and I'm sure customers will be so much happier with it, even though from a tech perspective, it's actually very basic and very simple.
Interesting. That's a very interesting customer insight. And when it comes to acquisition channels, how do you go about? How do you think about distribution? A lot of engineers and a lot of product guys think too deeply about product. But what were your acquisition channels when you wanted to penetrate into the market?
We focus primarily on education. So if we can educate you on how our devices are going to help you, and if you think that's something you want, then you might buy it. So our key channel is content on third-party sites. So content in newspapers, either via organic or via paid, and then using that content to drive traffic to our site and then selling on our site. So that's our main channel.
Interesting. I love the content strategy. I'm a podcaster myself, and I think it's not as expensive as say, running ads, but in the long term, it really adds on to the brand value. And I was wondering, how do you look at, especially when it comes to physical products, how do you look at CAC to LTV ratio and the other metrics? What do you think is the most important metrics when it comes to a physical product like this?
For a physical product, I think the best metric to start with is um, how so the customer fault ratio um, before you scale anything. So what I mean by that is, let's say you sell 1,000 units, maybe one had a fault, then you know that that's your ratio, at least 1,000. Then you see if that scales to 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100,000. Um, and that is, to me, the first thing to do when it comes to a physical product is understand what the fault level is, and obviously optimize it and reduce it before you scale. Because uh, if you do it from a software perspective, where you get a product out which is good but quite basic, and then you upgrade it later, and you just focus on growth, it doesn't quite work. I mean, it does work in hardware if you have a lot of money and you want to keep sending replacements, but unless that's what you want, you don't want to scale to 1,000,000 units and have 50% failures. So I see it from a engineer's perspective. The first metric is how good the quality is to a certain extent, maybe 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, whatever is the confidence level that you want. Once you're happy that you're under your fault rate is below a number that you're very happy to scale, let's say it's 1% or 0.1% or whatever is the right number for you, then you get to the next metrics. And the next metrics, definitely the COGS to actual order value, not the RRP, because RRP might be much higher than what you actually make. So you need 5x or more to have a really scalable business. So if your cost of manufacturing is $20, you need to sell it for $100. And that is um, a very good starting point when it comes to COGS to AOV ratio. Then the third metric is, yeah, that's the one you're talking about, is CAC to LTV. That's absolutely correct. But the reason I talk about the other two first is because if you have a good CAC and a good LTV, but your cost of production, the cost of goods is very high, then you'll never make a profit, right? And it's not something you can fix later unless it's just a pure scale thing. And scale does help to a certain extent, but often the scale that you need to get small increases is like 10x. Like you're selling 10,000, you need to sell 100,000, which is not as easy as improving CAC. So as an engineer, I feel that the design needs to start as focus with the focus of what's the cost of the product, what is the target retail price of the product that is reasonable for a consumer to want to buy it, and having that multiple, which allows for your R&D cost, your compliance costs, your marketing costs, your operational costs, and still have profit. So I would say, yeah, those three things are what we care about.
Interesting. You talked about the cost of manufacture. I was listening to it intently because I used to run a direct to consumer business, and if I and to shut it down because I couldn't scale it up, but if I could go back, I would make sure it's the cost of manufacturing to the exact sales price. It should be 4 to 5 times of difference. I think that's a very valid point you made. And in this space, who do you think are your most who are your competitors? Are they based in US or they're spread across?
So it depends on how the consumer sees us. If they see us as a pleasure product company, the biggest company in that space would be Lelo, the premium sex toy company. If they see us as a medical device company, then the biggest player in they're quite specific. So in erection would probably be Viberect. For pelvic floor pain will probably be Pelvic Wand. But the thing is, none of these companies are household names like we were talking about. They're not brands that most people will be aware of. And so really, it is a blue ocean. It's then goes back to the question of marketing is if you educate the consumer and they learn that a solution exists and a solution can help them, then they'll buy it because they don't know any other solutions. So to bring that to life, if you think of a headphone, which is the opposite spectrum, where there are lots of famous brands, Bose, Sony, Apple, Yamaha, loads. If you launch a new headphone, the first thing people will do is compare with lots of household brand names because people already know why they want to buy a headphone. They just need to buy the best one. Whereas in our case, it's the opposite. No household brand names exist. The challenge to challenge the headphones company don't have is convincing someone that they need a headphone, right? People already know they want to buy a nice headphone. The challenge we have is convincing someone they need a device for a solution to something. And that's the education piece we have to do. But the challenge we don't have is then there's no 5 or 10 household brand names that they will compare. If they get a solution and we give them the solution, that's the one they will accept and use because there just isn't enough out there. So one of the biggest things we do as a company is trying to help other companies or encourage other companies, other people to start businesses in sexual wellness and health because there just isn't enough in this space, and we want more people. So it's not really competitive. Like all the brands, I would be very happy to help with and work with because anyone educating the consumer is helping everyone. Because if they buy a product, let's say we educate the customer and they buy a cushion and they really benefit from it, they're going to go look for other products.
Got it. Yeah, no, absolutely, totally makes sense. And when it comes to sexual health, it's such a taboo topic at times. How did you go about, raising funds? You've done it, over 6 funding rounds. What was some of the ways on how you were able to raise funds for a very non-typical product like yours?
So I raised money from angel investors, over 100 angel investors, mostly in the UK, and the way was it's simply in talking about the problem we're trying to solve, and if they related to it, whether it was, they had a kid and they had pain, and how did they get over it? And if they didn't, do they want to learn about it? They're older and they had menopause, and how did that affect them? Or, on the male side direction. So it's very much our investors are people who understand and relate to the problems we're trying to solve. And they also understand that a medical device company is a very long investment because it takes, 10 years to build it to a point where it's clinically proven, FDA registered, on medical payment, with a sufficient user group who has tried and tested and doctors saying it works well. And in many cases, it wouldn't work. So that's the kind of investor you need. We're very patient, but genuinely believe that if it works, in that time frame, then it's not just a big return on their investment, which is obviously an important element, but more importantly, it will help them and lots of other people on overcoming problems that they care deeply about.
Got it. And you raised a big Series A last year. Where do you look at investing your funds for future growth?
So we spend most of our time and funds on R&D because that's really who we are as a core, is research devices, get feedback from doctors and patients, run studies, go through regulatory approval, go through compliance, run deeper studies. So the two levels are cohort studies and trials, and then get it out there in terms of content and marketing. So we spend most of our time and money on R&D, on innovation, and really getting deep into the tech and the user experience. And then for marketing, we go direct to consumer. And till date, we have been, our sales have been higher than our stock. So the demand far exceeds supply. So we know that where we are, if we invest enough time and money and resources into our product and make them exceptionally good, both from efficacy that actually helps people improve pain by 5 times, improve reaction by 2 times. Those are our clinical results. And at the same time, they are very beautiful and user-friendly, not scary and clinical. Then when we reach that point, we're ready to scale. We have built the platform that either external investment from a big institution or a corporate can scale that very quickly. So we focus more on building for scale and then scaling to a certain extent ourselves. So say to the 100,000 user level, but we don't yet work on the millions because we want to be very solid in terms of our foundation. So when we do turn the lever and scale marketing, which is basically a matter of spending money, then we have the right quality, all the right compliances, the right efficacy, the minimal returns and falls, and it scales very smoothly.
Interesting. And I quickly want to do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
Shoe Dog by Bill Knight, the Nike founder, because it is the most real book I have read as a hardware founder, and I believe every hardware founder should read it before they start their company because it's so hard. And I mean, starting a company is hard. Starting a hardware company is even harder. Starting a medical hardware company is even harder, and starting a medical hardware company in sexual health is really hard. So, I mean, that book, I sadly read it or happily read it much after I had started the company, because I think I wouldn't have started the company if I had read the book. But it is so true, and for hardware, it is really about perseverance and being tenacious. I think, if you think you can build a hardware company in a couple of years, it's just you're wasting your time. You need a long time to really build hardware properly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that book. We'll put that in the show notes. And yeah, if you could go back in time when you started Mr. White, what is one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
I'd give myself more time for anything I estimated. I I have always needed maybe 50 to 100% more to do what I thought I would need less time to do. So if I thought, oh, I can get this product ready in a year, probably take 2 years, 3 years even. Um, and that's the biggest lesson I learned is you cannot rush medical hardware. You might be able to rush hardware to a certain extent, but you cannot rush medical hardware. It just, your credibility is everything. And there's simply no point releasing a product which doesn't work.
Yeah, no, I completely agree on that. And well, what's your favorite online tool? For example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom.
Um, that is a very good question. What is my favorite online tool? Um, I don't want to say Zoom or Teams because I do feel like I need to meet more people in person and get back to more of my pre-COVID life, where I was very much face to face, and I hardly ever did any video calls. It is obviously very effective, and I value it, but I feel like I shouldn't even say that it's my favorite tool. Um, I guess my favorite tool is um, Chrome to find, and read good content. Um, I spend a lot of my time on Chrome, uh, which basically, a browser, but then I just end up on Chrome browsing, researching, reading stuff, finding new content to study and understand. And yeah, I don't know what I would do without Chrome. Finding things, Chrome and Google. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we'll put that in the show notes. And some, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Mr. White?
So everything is on mysteryvibe.com, all our content, all our products. And if anyone wants to reach out, have a chat, my email is soum@mysteryvibe.com. So SOUM@mysteryvibe.com.
Got it. We'll put that in the show notes. So thank you so much for taking your time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Thank you for having me.